The anticipation was palpable as I finalized the purchase of my new hunting property deep in the rugged Texas wilderness. The land was untamed, teeming with game, and a thrill for any hunter like me. Little did I know that this new acquisition would lead to a horrifying encounter that would haunt me for the rest of my days. I quickly set up trail cameras throughout the dense forest, eager to get a sense of the wildlife on my new land. The first few weeks were uneventful, capturing images of deer, raccoons, and the occasional bear. But one crisp autumn morning, as I checked the latest trail camera photos, my excitement turned to unease. There, amidst the ordinary animal captures, was a picture that sent chills down my spine. It was a dark, massive figure, covered in fur, with a human-like face, staring with its gray, dead eyes directly into the camera. It was unmistakable. A Sasquatch, the legendary creature that had been whispered about in hushed tones by hunters and locals for generations. My heart pounded as I examined the photo over and over. Surely it was some weirdo in a costume. Perhaps an inbred black bear? I kept making excuses as to what it was in order to comfort myself. I knew the consequences of sharing this with anyone. I'd be ridiculed, deemed a madman. Obviously, no one would believe me. So naturally, the need to prove what I had seen gnawed at me. Determined to find answers, I decided to venture into the woods with my loyal hunting dog, Max, by my side. The day was overcast. The forest was eerily silent as Max and I hiked deeper into the woods. The anticipation weighed heavily on me. As excited as I may have been, I was terrified. Deep down, though, I figured I probably wouldn't even encounter it. Hours passed, and the sun began its descent. Just as I had given up hope, we heard it. A low, guttural growl resonating through the trees. My hand instinctively went to the rifle slung over my shoulder. I signaled for Max to stay close, but the faithful dog growled, his hackles raised. Suddenly, it emerged from the shadows. That familiar, massive, dark figure, covered in matted black fur, with piercing eyes that held a deep, primal intelligence. It was a Sasquatch, and it had found us. Fear gripped me hard, and my heart raced as I raised my rifle, not intending to harm the creature but only to ward it off. The Sasquatch, with a speed that defied its size, lunged forward, its massive arms closing around Max. My loyal dog let out a heart-wrenching yelp as the creature's grip tightened. I fired my rifle, but missed completely as the beast flew about the thick woods, carrying my buddy, Max, in its filthy grip. The world seemed to slow down, and I watched in horror as Max was being torn apart by the monstrous beast. The Sasquatch's eyes bore into mine, an intelligence in them that sent a shiver down my spine. With Max's lifeless body cradled in its arms, the Sasquatch turned and vanished back into the forest, leaving behind a shaken and anguished hunter. I was left in the darkening woods, the weight of guilt and grief pressing down on me. I wanted to cry, but yet I was emotionless. I'd sought proof, but the cost was higher than I could have ever imagined. As I made my way back to my cabin, the forest's once familiar beauty now held a sinister aura. The Sasquatch was no longer a legend. It was a brutal reality that had torn my world apart, and I would forever be haunted by the memory of that fateful encounter. The chilling scream of the Sasquatch echoed in my ears, a reminder that the line between myth and reality had joined, and the forest held secrets more terrifying than I had ever imagined. About 10 years ago, my friend Jason and I were prone to getting involved in many types of misadventures, and this one, while seemingly pointless at the start, proved to be one to remember. While I am uncertain over the name of the campsite in question, I do know that it was one my father and I had visited on many occasions. The site had plenty of parking for camping vehicles, a close-by restroom for people to relax and drop a few pounds in, a nearby kiddie pond stocked with smaller fish that couldn't escape, and were just waiting for their respective number to come up, and a nearby river with a boat rental place for people to troll the river, or just fish leisurely. Surrounding all of this was open woodland, offering a tree-lined canopy over the camp parking, and mountains around us. It was a lovely place to be, and a welcome place for two young teens to adventure and explore. One particular night, after a lousy day of fishing, that had me slipping off the mud bank and into the kiddie pond, frightening all of the fish and causing other campers to curse in anger, pull up their reels, and head back to their camping areas in defeat. Jason and I decided that hiding in the brush overlooking the river as darkness set in around us would offer a great opportunity to see the nightlife come alive. And it kind of did. We heard, rather than saw, bats overhead as they picked off insects over the open water. We saw raccoons heading up towards the sleeping camp area with the likely idea of going through trash. There were even some deer that strolled through the dark, weary of anything out of the ordinary. Since I'd fallen into the kiddie pond, I guess I smelled okay to pass as non-threatening. As all of this was happening, the familiar sounds of buzzing insects and chirping crickets berated our ears, reminding us of just where we were and that there was life all around us. But even reminders have a tendency to go mute, like a snooze alarm not properly set. The silence was not an abrupt one, but rather a dying down swooping steadily over us from one side to the other. The clicks and chirps from the bats stopped. The buzzing of the flying insects around us retreated. The chirping of the crickets, in sections, went silent. Having been accustomed to outdoor evening antics, my friend and I both understood that, at that point, we were less alone than we had been previously. Where was the threat coming from, though? And what could it be? We both had our minds set on it being something like a coyote, or possibly a mountain lion. Whatever it was, we knew that staying still was in our best interest. Long minutes passed in shared silence, broken only by our shallow breaths of expectancy, as we strained our eyes in the darkness, trying to pick out anything moving through the leafed canopy and ground brush. A group of crickets off to our left started to chirp again, less lively than before, and we thought that perhaps any sign of possible danger had passed. Suddenly, there was a tinge of an odd scent in the air, earthy, musky, and not at all like the kiddie pool scent that now defined me. Where was it coming from, though? I was just about to stand up and head back to camp while we could still find it when an odd shape seemed to detach itself from the trees before us, close to the riverbank. My heart stopped in my throat. The form was huge, almost monstrous in size, but strangely human in its movement. It cast a heavy gaze to the right and to the left, before turning and beckoning to another unseen form, still hiding from our shared line of sight. What was going on here? In no time, another form, smaller than the other, came out of the brush and scurried to join the larger at the edge of the stream. Jason and I were curious, though equally frightened over what we were seeing. Was this a mother and child drinking from the river? Huge hands attached to long arms scooped water from the river and brought it up to the face and rubbed it over the hair on the arms and body. They're bathing, I thought. Whatever we had stumbled upon was bathing, both parent and child. Jason and I watched in interest as the ritual before us went on. The entire time, the only thought I was dwelling on was how quiet these beings were. That were like the raccoons we had observed before these two came along. Their movements over the terrain absolutely silent. Eventually, the two left their place along the river and melted back into the black of the trees around us. Long minutes of uncertainty passed before the insect noises started up again in chorus, and we knew that we were safe to head back through the bramble to camp, again. As quietly as we could, we did just that. The meeting, though brief, had left the two of us with little question as to the validity that there may very well be something else out there, uncertain, unidentified, but absolutely alive and well. It was 2006, and took place in the pitch blackness of the woods. 3 of us daringly set out to experience the presence of Bigfoot once again. This was not our first time back in the woods since the first meeting, nor was it the first time looking for the creature again. Our group started out as 5, but as soon as we hit the woods, 2 cowardly bowed out. We entered the woods with a flashlight and nothing more. It was the middle of the summer and very dark inside the woods due to the thickness of the brush. Walking rather cautiously for about 20 minutes, we reached deeper and deeper into the woods. Once we came upon a small stream within the woods, we heard something else among us. A loud crash sounded directly in front of us. Terrified that we had been spotted by whatever was with us in the woods, we all immediately whispered to turn the flashlight off. Standing there in the dark, we heard the noise again. A very loud crash. The sound of something metal hitting something else metal. A very odd sound for it being heard in the middle of the woods. After about a minute of these loud crashes, the worst thing happened. It got quiet. It was so horrifying standing there in the middle of the woods in the dark, silent, standing so very close to this beast. The dead giveaway that it wasn't a human was the piercing low growl it emitted after another minute of silence. We could feel the breath of this creature as it snarled at us. We were that close. To say that we ran would be an understatement. Totally disregarding the trail, we all split up, escaping to the outside. Once we were out of the woods, we did not look back. We continued to run all the way home. This was my last encounter with the fiend, whatever it may have been. For the sake of classification, it matched very well with other Bigfoot descriptions, so I decided to call it Bigfoot. As I've said before, the beast in the first encounter could have been entirely different, but the events were so similar. In my mind, it was the same. I have been back to those woods many, many times after this encounter, and still have yet to experience anything else. Occasionally we hear noises, but nothing significant enough to call an encounter.